Hello, everyone. She was told her forehead was too big, her hips too wide, her look too commercial for high fashion. Yet Tyra Banks did what almost no one had done before she conquered both the runway and the television screen, becoming one of the most recognizable and influential women in modeling history. From walking for Chanel to becoming the first African-American woman to grace the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, Tyra was not just breaking barriers, she was smashing them with a smile, a strut, and an unshakable will. But behind the fierce persona and flawless poses, there was a woman fighting her own insecurities and redefining beauty on her own terms. Tyra Lynn Banks was born on December 4th, 1973 in Inglewood, California, a city with a rhythm all its own, part grit, part glamour. She was the younger of two children, raised by Carolyn London, a medical photographer, and Donald Banks, a computer consultant. When Tyra was just 6 years old, her parents divorced, leaving her and her brother Devin to grow up between two households. The separation was difficult, but Tyra later credited her parents' decision to co-parent respectfully as one of the reasons she developed resilience early in life. As a child, Tyra stood out, but not always in ways that felt good to her. By the time she was 11, she experienced a sudden growth spurt, shooting up to nearly her adult height. Her tall, lanky frame and striking features often made her the target of teasing at school. She was called Giraffe and Ugly Duckling, names that planted seeds of insecurity that she would later fight hard to overcome. Tyra attended Immaculate Heart High School in Los Angeles, a private all-girls Catholic school. It was there, amid uniforms and strict rules, that she began to realize the power of reinvention. She studied hard, but she also paid attention to how style and self-presentation could shift how others perceived you. Her mother, always a source of encouragement, told her to embrace what made her different rather than trying to hide it. By the time Tyra was 15, a transformation began. Her features, the ones she had once been teased for, suddenly caught the attention of modeling scouts. The tall frame, almond-shaped eyes, an infectious smile that made her awkward in middle school became her greatest assets. She started to entertain the idea that maybe her difference could be her advantage. Still, her journey into modeling wasn't a straight path. While she dreamed of fashion, she was also aware of the harsh realities of the industry, especially for Black women. Representation was scarce, and those who did make it often faced pressure to conform to Eurocentric beauty standards. Tyra knew she would have to work harder, walk taller, and shine brighter to make her mark. Her early life was a mix of contrasts, the suburban safety of Los Angeles alongside the challenges of adolescence, the sting of teasing alongside the unwavering support of her family. Those formative years would give her the emotional armor she needed when the modeling world inevitably tested her. By the time she reached her final year of high school, Tyra wasn't just ready to graduate, she was ready to step onto an entirely different stage. And that stage was much bigger than anything she had imagined. Tyra's break into modeling came with an almost cinematic twist. During her final year of high school, she began sending her photos to agencies. Most turned her down, citing her as too commercial for high fashion and too high fashion for commercial work, a frustrating contradiction that could have easily ended her ambition before it began. But Tyra was not built to accept rejection as a final answer. Her persistence paid off when elite model management in Los Angeles offered her representation. From there, she started booking local print and catalog jobs, building a small but steady portfolio. Still, Tyra knew that if she wanted to be taken seriously, she had to make a bold move. That move came in the form of Paris. At just 17 years old, Tyra packed her bags and flew to France for the spring runway season. Paris in the early 1990s was the epicenter of high fashion, but it was also notoriously unwelcoming to newcomers, especially models of color. Tyra walked into her first Paris casting with a mixture of nerves and determination. She expected to face endless rejection. But instead, the opposite happened. Designers could not get enough of her. Her debut season was nothing short of historic. She booked a staggering 25 runway shows, an unheard-of number for a newcomer. From Chanel to Yves Saint Laurent, from Christian Dior to Givenchy, Tyra's face and walk quickly became the talk of the fashion world. Karl Lagerfeld personally selected her for Chanel, a move that signaled she had crossed from promising new face to fashion insider's favorite almost overnight. What set Tyra apart was her ability to adapt her presence. On the runway, she could deliver the fierce, almost untouchable aura that Paris loved. But backstage and in interviews, her warmth and quick wit shone through, endearing her to photographers and designers alike. However, Paris was not without challenges. Tyra later admitted that she faced subtle and overt racism during castings comments about her hair texture, skin tone, and the assumption that she could only walk for certain designers. She learned to push back with quiet confidence, insisting on wearing her natural hair for some shows and refusing to be boxed into a narrow definition of beauty. After 2 wildly successful seasons in Paris, Tyra returned to the United States with a transformed career. She became one of the few models to work seamlessly in both high fashion and commercial markets. She landed contracts with CoverGirl, Victoria's Secret, and Sports Illustrated, a combination that allowed her to dominate multiple sectors of the industry simultaneously. But perhaps the most significant moment of her early career came in 1997, when she became the first African-American woman to appear solo on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. It was a cultural milestone that shattered long-standing industry barriers and opened doors for other models of color. By the end of the 1990s, Tyra had transitioned from a rising star to a household name. She wasn't just modeling, she was setting the stage for the media empire she would later build. That empire, however, was still just a dream in the mind of a young woman who had once been called an ugly duckling in middle school. Her entry into modeling had not just been about beauty, it was about rewriting the rules of who got to be seen, celebrated, and remembered. And Tyra was only getting started. By the mid-1990s, Tyra Banks was no longer just the promising newcomer from Inglewood, she was a global phenomenon. Her image was everywhere, towering over city streets on billboards, gracing the covers of Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar, and walking for the most prestigious designers in the world. In Paris, she remained a favorite for Chanel, Christian Dior, and Yves Saint Laurent. In New York, she commanded the runways for Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, and Oscar de la Renta. Her catwalk presence was magnetic. She could exude regal elegance in a floor-length couture gown one moment and deliver electric, high-energy struts in edgy streetwear the next. That versatility was rare, and it made her indispensable. But Tyra's real breakthrough into mainstream pop culture came through her crossover into commercial modeling. Her long-standing contract with CoverGirl brought her into millions of households, making her one of the most recognizable faces in the beauty industry. And then came Victoria's Secret. As one of the original Victoria's Secret angels, Tyra redefined the lingerie runway show, while other models kept a reserved, almost icy demeanor. Tyra lit up the stage with her dazzling smile, playful energy, and the now famous smize smiling with her eyes that would later become her signature teaching point on America's Next Top Model. Her role in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue cemented her as a trailblazer. When she appeared solo on the cover in 1997, wearing that iconic pink polka dot bikini, it wasn't just a career milestone, it was a cultural shift. For countless young women of color, Tyra's image was proof that beauty came in more shades, shapes, and stories than the industry had allowed. Tyra also began expanding her presence beyond fashion. She took small acting roles in television and film, appearing in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and later starring in movies like Higher Learning and Coyote Ugly. This ability to move between modeling and entertainment hinted at the media empire she was quietly building. By the turn of the millennium, Tyra was operating on multiple fronts, dominating high fashion runways, anchoring major commercial campaigns and carving a space for herself in Hollywood. She had successfully broken the mold of what a supermodel could be, not just a face, but a brand, a storyteller, and a force for change. In the glittering spotlight of her peak years, it seemed like Tyra could do no wrong. But as the cameras flashed and the applause roared, she was already plotting her next transformation, one that would take her beyond modeling and into uncharted territory. Tyra Banks never fit neatly into any single box, and that was exactly her power. In an industry obsessed with perfection, she leaned into what made her different. She spoke openly about her natural curves at a time when heroin chic dominated fashion. She refused to conform to the sample sizes designers often demanded, insisting instead that beauty should not be defined by a measuring tape. Her resistance was not loud or combative, it was strategic. Tyra understood that representation mattered more when it was tied to visibility. She used her covers, interviews, and runway appearances to normalize diversity, not as a passing trend, but as a necessity. This was groundbreaking in the 1990s, when few supermodels of color had the leverage to challenge the system. She also refused to let modeling dictate the entirety of her identity. While still at the height of her fashion career, she launched America's Next Top Model in 2003, a move that shocked the industry. The show flipped the script by putting the behind-the-scenes world of modeling on full display, complete with its politics, pressures, and pitfalls. More importantly, it featured contestants of all shapes, sizes, and ethnicities long before body positivity became a buzzword. On ANTM, Tyra played the role of mentor, judge, and sometimes provocateur. She created viral moments from the infamous "We were all rooting for you" outburst to the empowering smize lessons that became pop culture staples. The series not only extended her influence, but also reframed her from model to mogul. Tyra also spoke openly about issues most models avoided: ageism, racism, and mental health. She admitted to struggling with body image, even at her peak, and revealed the intense scrutiny she faced over every pound gained or lost. This vulnerability humanized her in the eyes of her fans and distinguished her from the untouchable glamour often associated with supermodels. Even her business moves defied industry expectations. She launched her own production company, Bankable Productions, and pursued projects outside fashion, from talk shows to investments in startups. She became one of the first supermodels to treat her career like a diversified business portfolio, proving that beauty could be leveraged into long-term wealth and influence. Tyra's refusal to stay in her lane made her a target for criticism from purists who believed models should only model. But for every critic, there were thousands who saw her as proof that ambition had no limits. She had broken through the narrow definition of beauty, and then she broke through the narrow definition of success. For Tyra, the runway was just the starting line, and she was running a much bigger race. For someone who built a career on being in control, Tyra Banks was not immune to the chaos of fame. By the late 2000s, the intensity of her public life began to take a toll. Running America's Next Top Model, hosting the Tyra Banks Show, and maintaining her business ventures left little room for rest. Behind the high-energy persona, exhaustion was creeping in. Her talk show, while successful, also became a source of controversy. Tyra often pushed boundaries, tackling sensitive topics from eating disorders to cosmetic surgery. But some episodes drew criticism for being overly sensational. Viewers accused her of using vulnerable guests for ratings. Tyra defended her approach, insisting she wanted to start conversations. But the backlash chipped away at her image as the flawless mentor. The modeling industry itself was also changing. Social media was reshaping the definition of a supermodel, with Instagram influencers replacing the runway elite. While Tyra adapted quickly to digital trends, the shift meant she was no longer the center of the fashion conversation. Younger audiences knew her more as a TV personality than as a high-fashion model. Her decision to step away from hosting ANTM in 2015 shocked fans. She explained it was time to focus on other projects, but rumors swirled that declining ratings and behind-the-scenes conflicts had influenced her exit. Although she later returned for the final seasons, The magic of her original run never fully came back. Tyra also faced personal challenges. In interviews, she admitted struggling with body changes in her 40s and the pressure to maintain her iconic image. Tabloids scrutinized every candid photo, speculating about weight gain or cosmetic procedures. For a woman who had built a career on redefining beauty, the public's fixation on her appearance was both ironic and painful. She also experienced heartbreak in her personal life. A long-term relationship with Norwegian photographer Erik Asla ended in 2017 shortly after the birth of their son, York Banks Asla, via surrogacy. Motherhood brought her immense joy, but the breakup and transition into single parenting marked a quieter, more private chapter in her life. By the late 2010s, Tyra's appearances became more selective. She resurfaced for special projects, a Sports Illustrated comeback in 2019, the launch of her model-themed amusement venture Model Land, and a surprise hosting gig on Dancing with the Stars. But the days of constant media saturation were over. Her partial retreat wasn't a dramatic disappearance, but rather a calculated withdrawal. Tyra Banks had learned the cost of staying in the spotlight too long, and this time, she wanted to choose her exits on her own terms. Tyra Banks' name will forever be etched into the history of fashion, not just as a supermodel, but as a force who expanded the definition of beauty. She was one of the first Black women to dominate both high fashion and commercial markets, a feat that inspired countless others to believe they belonged in spaces once closed to them. Her smize became a pop culture phenomenon, but her legacy runs deeper than a modeling technique. Through America's Next Top Model, she mentored and launched the careers of hundreds of aspiring models from diverse backgrounds. She helped normalize conversations about body image, race, and self-worth in an industry that had long avoided them. Outside of modeling, Tyra proved that a supermodel could evolve into a businesswoman, producer, author, and mother without losing control of her narrative. She transformed her platform into a multi-industry empire, paving the way for future models to see themselves as more than faces in a magazine. Even in her quieter years, her influence remains. Designers, photographers, and former contestants still credit her with shaping their paths. Younger generations discover her through viral clips, unaware they are witnessing a piece of fashion history. Perhaps Tyra's greatest achievement was showing that beauty could be powerful, but intelligence, resilience, and authenticity could be unstoppable. She did not just walk the runway, she built her own. And for Tyra Banks, the lights never truly went out.